I'm honoured to be here today with musical master Mika. He's here from London.
Hi.
And he's come to Beijing for the first stop of his Beijing Shenzhen tour here.
And Hangzhou.
And Hangzhou as well, yes.
Doing a festival by the lake, which is amazing.
It's a lovely lake, by the way.
I've been there. I've had tea in one of those little boats. And when I remember from Hangzhou, there was this amazing thing. All the people from the Beijing opera and the traditional opera house because they train there, they used to practice along the lake, and you used to sit in these boats and hear people singing.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I hope it's still like that. Well, you probably won't be able to hear them because I'll be playing.
Absolutely fine, I'm sure that's what people are there for. You don't get that in London either anytime. But you know, your fan base in China is absolutely massive. And as Blued, we are the world's largest gay social app with over 15 million users worldwide, 12 million of them here, 3 million externally. I know they're all very excited that you've finally come to Beijing. Their question is, why is it taking you so long to come to this part of the world?
Good question. A massive question, actually. I think, well, there's the not truthful answer, and then there's the truthful answer. Which one would you like?
Somewhere in the middle.
No, I'll give you both. I've wanted to come here for ages. I've actually been to China, this is my 10th trip to Beijing. 3 of my sisters lived here. 2 went to Beishida, and one of them went to fashion art school here, actually. So they're all fluent in Mandarin. I studied Mandarin for 9 years. I'm pitiful. I'm one of the worst Mandarin speakers you've ever heard. But I tried. And I've wanted to come here for years, since my first album. The truth is that when you're doing these kind of tours, you need a couple of linchpin shows. And now that I've been able to kind of really build up my touring numbers in like Korea and in Japan and stuff, it's really helped me be able now to use those as platforms to come over and do shows in mainland China. So hopefully this is the first of many, because this has been really on my mind for a very, very long time, and I've seen how so many improbable songs for some reason connect over here in ways that I would never expect them to. So it's really a privilege to be able to play here, and also at the same time I'm really curious tonight to find out what the Chinese fans are like. How are they going to react? I arrived at the airport yesterday, and there were all these people, these fans that were at the airport waiting for me, and they had prepared all these gifts and flowers and billboards, and it's really touching. And they were all Chinese, and they were all in their late teens and 20s. And I just hope that my crowd tonight is going to be mostly Chinese. That's one thing I hope. I hope it's not you know, overwhelmingly foreigners. I don't think it will be, because there's only one place I've ever played with a crowd that was half foreigners, and that was in Singapore. The rest of the world, I always played a local
audience.
Yeah.
And I do know that your fan base here is massive, so I think that your wish will be fulfilled with probably about a 90%, 10% split there with
90% local is exactly perfect.
Wonderful. So music crosses all boundaries. You say you were surprised that some of the songs have caught on here. Why is that? Why do you think that the Chinese wouldn't necessarily connect with what you're giving them?
I don't think it's that they won't connect. I think it's because you know, we work so hard to promote stuff in other territories that I always work, you know. And so when a song picks up of its own accord, there's a certain type of magical combination of things that's come together to make that song happen.
But that's brilliant, though.
And
it's more natural,
that's what I mean. It's completely natural. It's kind of like you could apply it like some sort of kind of, it's not exactly Darwin survival of the fittest. It's more like Darwinian survival of the catchiest.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, wonderful. Can I ask just a little bit about your background? So I understand you were born in Lebanon, then moved to France, and then to the UK. And how do you think this has affected your musical style when you come to create your songs these days?
A mixture. It's funny. I seem to be always answering your questions with contradictions, but it's a mixture of it's affected it in massively and also not at all. Like, for example, I am not influenced by one particular sound. I am not influenced by a particular fashion that's tied to a certain geographical place. And as a result, and I've come from all these different places, I've built my own identity through my music and through my aesthetic and through my drawings, my stage shows, through the things that I want to communicate. Even as the way that I speak, I've built that by the subject matters that I approach in my songs, then also I am able to approach them when I'm having conversations. Everything for me goes through songs first, and then finds its way into reality. It's really strange, the idea of having someone else write your songs or write your texts.
Anathema.
It just doesn't make sense to me, because it's like, now wait a minute, I write songs because it makes me able to breach things that I would never be able to kind of even think about dealing with
It's
in
much
real
more
life.
personal.
And so I've formed an identity through my placelessness. Something like that can destroy you, or it can make you. It's funny looking at today, like I'm part of an ever-growing generation, or a number of people that are increasingly placeless. And I think that there's an enormous freedom that comes with that, a kind of a cultural identity that is much more autonomous than people who are tied down to one particular place.
Wonderful. That's an excellent answer. Thank you for that. Moving on to something which is more towards Blue, because as I say, we are the world's biggest, I might add there, gay social app. And as an openly LGBT artist yourself, you are obviously going to be an inspirational for all LGBT youth.
But I'm full of contradictions as well.
You're full of contradictions as well?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm open with my sexuality. However, it took me quite a while to get there, and I suffered a lot of pressure and discrimination, even from people who refused the fact that I was taking my own time and I was going to deal with my own sexuality in my own time. You know, it's only recently that I felt like my life was under control enough in order to truly be positive about my own sexuality, to be constructive with it. So I've taken my time. So in a way, it's 100% part of who I am and part of my life, and I have no qualms about it or talking about it. I find it, you know, sexuality is an essential part of identity, and it's really fascinating. But I didn't succumb to some of the pressures that I was being put under, and it took a lot of strength to do that.
No, of course not. My question was going to be, have you got any words of advice, especially to the young Chinese population who may be questioning themselves or whatever? But I think you just answered that in your previous statement. So
no, I think just taking time. I think realizing that sexuality is just a part of who you are, and it will form who you are, whether you like it or not. So in a way, don't sweat it. Don't think about it too much, because it's part of who you are.
But it's not everything. Sexuality doesn't define you.
It doesn't define you.
Part of.
But also the idea that if I was sitting there and I could say one thing to the 14-year-old version of myself, it's like, zoom out. You're not going to be 14 for the rest of your life.
It seems like it at the time, though.
Things will change. The landscape changes. Your life will change. The things you think are unbreachable or unspeakable or unacceptable at a certain point in your life will become far more acceptable later on. They will. It's Sod's law. It's the way that it goes. As long as you were truly constructive and you don't let it destroy you. Use oppression if you're suffering it, or use marginalization to develop your own colors in your own way, to procure your difference, because that will be your single most valuable currency that you will have to use to build your life later on.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. God, that song is awful.
I had to go there. So just staying on to that topic, Ireland, obviously the Republic of Ireland just passed an overwhelming majority to legalise gay marriage.
Yes.
And I believe in the UK, apart from Northern Ireland, it's legal all of there. So obviously we come from a culture where it's more or less accepted here. Do you see this trend continuing into the future? And do you think it would be easier for openly LGBT artists as the years go on?
I think it's already, I think it depends. Well, firstly, it's really interesting because, yes, I think the trend of, there's two things. There's the question of gay marriage, I think, and the equal rights. It's only going to go more in that direction.
Oh, wonderful.
100%. It's only going to go more in that direction. That said, it's going to take a lot more time in some places than others. This conversation that we are having right here in Beijing is a privilege, because there are some countries in the world, in Africa and stuff, where this conversation would not be allowed to happen.
First time.
So it's all relative. At the same time, I think that there's one basic rule, and that is that tolerance breeds success. Socially and economically, when you allow people to invest in each other, when you invest in people, no matter who they are, how different they are to you, it will make a better society, it will make a more prosperous society, and one that functions more as a society with an identity. It's funny because by protecting difference, you group people together more. And that will win over everything. And I am fundamentally hopeful in that regard, and that's certainly what I hope and I think will happen in the future. It's just a question of time. As far as things being easier for artists, I don't know. I don't know if things are that hard now in countries where we're able to have this conversation. I don't think there are
Many
barriers and boundaries
anymore.
as there were before.
We are running out of time, though, and I'm getting looks from over there, I'm afraid. So this is a wonderful conversation if we could continue it later.